Welcome to another playbook. This one is on user delight. Now, user delight is a term that you would have heard a lot if you work with designers and if you work with some product managers who genuinely care about creating products with great deep delight. But what is it, right? What is it when it means? What does it mean when a designer looks to you and says that, hey, we need to add a little bit more delight into this product? Or when somebody gives feedback on your user interface design, or after using your product, somebody says, hey, this product was really delightful, or hey, I wish this product could have been a little bit more delightful, right? So let's talk about that. It's an often used term, but I think very imprecise term in a lot of ways and means a lot of things to a lot of different people. So let's try and sort of give it a definition, right? So user delight refers to any positive emotional effect that a user may have when interfacing with a device or interface. And this is, of course, we're talking about tech products here. User delight may not always be expressed outwardly, but can influence the behaviors and opinions formulated while using a website or application. Right? So there's a lot there to unpack. Positive emotional effect that a user may have when interacting with the product or the service or the device or the interface. It is not always expressed outwardly. Because not all emotions are expressed outwardly, so a lot of user delight need not be expressed outwardly, but can influence the behaviors and opinions formulated while using a website or application. So this is very critical. Good user delight can lead to positive behavior changes, can lead to positive opinions being formed around your product. All right. Now, one of the best sort of usages of user delight was in Aaron Walter's book on designing for emotion. And what he did was he sort of built out a pyramid very similar to Maslow's pyramid of needs. But what he essentially said is what is the hierarchy of user needs? And it's very critical to understand this if we want to understand what user delight is, because user delight, in the absence of the bottom three layers, which is functionality, reliability, and usability, is sort of useless, right? So suppose your product is really pleasurable. It has great delight. The copy is phenomenal. There are these beautiful micro interactions. When you use it, you feel great joy, but it is not reliable. It doesn't work the same way twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times. So every time you use it, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There goes your user delight for a toss. It's not functional. It doesn't get you from point A to point B, right? It doesn't do the job for which it was meant. And it's not usable, which means there's a lot of friction while using the product, right? It's not easy for you to figure out where to go in the interface. So discovery is not solved. It's very difficult for you to figure out what to do next. It's very difficult for you to figure out what the next steps are in the process, what the app expects from you, what the product expects from you. So without these 3 layers of functionality, reliability, and usability, pleasurability is not really a concept. Something which is pleasurable, which is delightful in the absence of the previous 3 things is sort of useless. So I think Aaron Walter sort of laid this down really, really well in his book, Designing for Emotion, that you need all these 4 layers before we even talk about delight. Because delight is very dependent on the other 3 things existing and doesn't really exist without that. So when you're trying to build a product, you're first trying to foremost build a functional product, a reliable product, a usable product, and then a pleasurable product, right? But user delight itself is of different types. And let's go, what are the things that actually make interface delightful or product delightful? So there's surface delight, which is superficial in nature. It's sort of things which give you delight on surface. There are things like copy, right? One of the products which does it really, really well is Slack. When you're down to Slack 0, when all your messages are read, Slack does these beautiful copies. Here's a tractor for you, or hope you're having a good day, or here's a crystal ball, gaze into it, right? So the delight there comes from the fact that, hey, you're down to 0 inbox, you're down to 0 messages, and something delightful happens on your screen, right? So this is one way in which good copy can be a very delightful factor, right? Apps do this really well when they put out a new update for your app, and on the Play Store you have this app update section where usually somebody puts, hey, bug fixes, right? But some people will go out of their way and write really good, clever copy, wish people during the festival season, or talk about the fact that their engineers have worked really hard on this particular update and fixed a whole bunch of things, right? So don't just say something in a very plain vanilla way. Actually add delight within your copy. Animations and sort of micro interactions are the other way in which you can add great amount of user delight. One of my favorite things which happens is in Swiggy, every time I order something and the order goes through successfully, that beautiful blue tick mark appears. Now, the strange part is, if in the real world I went to a restaurant and ordered, this is the equivalent of the waiter tapping me on the shoulder and saying, "Well done, sir, you've placed your order." But that's exactly what the Swiggy app is doing. You have just placed an order. So you've spent money on Swiggy, but Swiggy is giving you a thumbs up. It's giving you a tick mark saying, "Well done, you've done it," right? But it still adds that moment of, like dopamine sort of bursting in your head. And it's a beautiful micro interaction that when you're done, you know that your order has been placed when that big blue tick mark appears. It also gives you that breathing room before the next screen appears, which shows you the map and shows you the location of your delivery partner and where your restaurant is with respect to your house, right? So very beautifully done. These small things really, really matter a lot. Sounds, right? Again, the right sound effect at the right place. That chime, that small ding dong sort of a sound. Those are things which sort of make interfaces really, really delightful. Gestural commands, right? The fact that on WhatsApp I can just swipe a message and it immediately goes into reply mode, so I can do a threaded message or at least sort of bring my response in context to what I'm responding to. It's just such a wonderful gesture, right? So those small moments add such a great amount of delight, right? And of course, tactile transitions, right? Where either there are gestural commands or there are tactile transitions. So you actually feel as if the entire surface has moved, right? There is, the gyrometer does something. And while playing games, for example, this is a great source of delight for a user, as if you're literally bumping into a wall when you're playing a driving game. The other kind of delight is a deep delight, and this is the harder one to explain. Deep delight comes from a state of flow. It's very holistic in nature, right? This is sort of when end to end all the four parts work. The product is very functional, it's very reliable, it's very useful, and it's very pleasurable. That's when you get like this very holistic feeling of as if you were in the flow. You don't even realize it, right? To me, it recently happened when I got my second COVID shot, and it just sort of was a very overall a very deep, delightful experience, because I just went there. I was expecting that I would have to wait for an hour and a half, but no, I just went into a clinic, filled out a form. Even before I could sit, they asked me to come and make the payment. I made the payment. They guided me to a room. I sat down. Within a minute, I had my shot, and I walked out, and that was it. My car hadn't had a chance to get parked in that time, but I was already out. And that was every part of that user experience worked really, really well. So it was very holistic in nature, and it was very delightful. Every part of it worked. It was very functional. It was very usable, right? And it was very delightful, right? So I hope this video gives you a sense of what user delight is. Right? User delight and sort of building a deep aesthetic sort of sensibility into your product without the product actually working, without the product being reliable, is sort of useless. So you have to build this pyramid of user needs and make sure that you hit every one of them. But delight is important. The emotional response is very, very critical. You can measure, you can clearly see in products which are purely functional, but products which are functional and delightful, you know that the product which is functional and delightful will in the long term win out against a product which is purely functional, right? Users care about these small things. That dopamine rush in their head is a really good thing, right? And user delight does help in behavior changes and in positive responses and improving the metrics of your products. So yes, do try and build delightful products, work with your designers, work with your engineers to sort of do all these things, like the small things in your product will matter. Hope you've been enjoying the playbooks. See you in the next one. Take care. Bye.